Have you ever wondered if your state pension is truly based on the life you lived, or on a few missing paperwork entries you never even knew existed? Because right now, for thousands of UK pensioners, the system may be paying less than they're owed quietly, automatically, and with no warning letter. Before we go any further, please tap like, hit subscribe, and share this video with one person you care about who's already retired or close to it. Most people don't check their national insurance record, and that's exactly what makes this so dangerous. You might think, I paid into the system, I worked hard, I raised a family, I did everything I was supposed to do. Then years pass, retirement arrives, and only then do you notice your pension looks smaller than you expected. The painful part isn't only the money, it's the feeling that something important was taken from you without your permission, like the system forgot your effort. Here's the tension at the heart of this problem. The UK state pension is built on qualifying years. But for certain groups of people, those qualifying years can be missing, wrongly recorded, or never applied in the first place. And when that happens, your pension can be lower for the rest of your life, not for a month, not for a year, for decades. Worse, the system doesn't chase you. It doesn't always fix itself. It often just keeps paying what it thinks is correct until you decide to look. So today I want to show you something very specific and very practical. I'm going to explain three groups of UK pensioners who are being underpaid because of mistakes or missing records in their national insurance data. Then I'll walk you through how to check your own record without needing to be a computer expert. And most importantly, I'll cover one fix that can be free and backdated, meaning it can put money back into your past, not just change your future pension. Stay with me, because the most valuable part comes after you understand the pattern. Let's start with the basics in simple terms so nothing feels confusing. Your state pension is based on qualifying years. Those are the years that count toward your pension amount. Usually you need around 35 qualifying years for the full new state pension, and you need at least 10 qualifying years to get anything meaningful. So the state pension isn't just a reward for working, it's a total made of recorded years. And those years come from two broad types of life events. One type is work, where national insurance contributions were actually paid. The other type is life events, where the system is supposed to protect your qualifying years, even if you weren't earning in the usual way. Examples include caring responsibilities, sickness, unemployment, or raising children. But here's the problem. The system is only as good as the information that gets recorded. If even 1 year is treated as not qualifying when it should have been counted, your pension can be reduced, and often the person doesn't find out until they're already retired. There's a special kind of unfairness in that, because you didn't miss your chance. The paperwork did, or the process failed somewhere along the way, or credits that should have been applied were never linked correctly, or your life event wasn't translated into a qualifying record the way it should have been. And that's the key point that changes everything. This is not about you being careless. It's about the system relying on records created over many years, passed between departments and completed by humans, and forms and processes that can break. Sometimes a form never gets processed. Sometimes a change of name doesn't match up properly. Sometimes someone is self-employed and the rules aren't explained clearly. Sometimes a benefit is claimed, but the related credit isn't added in the national insurance record, and once those gaps exist, the system can stay happy with paying less. Because it doesn't always know there's a problem, it can quietly continue for years until you check. So the goal isn't panic, the goal is clarity. Because if you can see where the record is wrong or incomplete, you can often get it corrected. Now let's talk about the three groups. Group 1 is people who are self-employed. This is more common than most pensioners expect. If you were an employee, national insurance contributions usually get taken automatically from your wages. The system already knows you were working and paying through payroll, year by year. But if you were self-employed, working for yourself as a tradesperson, shopkeeper, cleaner, taxi driver, hairdresser, or anyone running their own show, national insurance works differently. In those years, the record only counts properly if the right contributions were actually paid, and here's where many people get caught. Not everyone realizes that self-employed years can have gaps, not because the person stopped working, but because the contribution requirement depends on profit and thresholds. There were periods when earnings dropped. Maybe you had a slow season, maybe you were paying off debts, maybe your income was inconsistent, or you just didn't realize that certain years might not count unless specific payments were made, and some people simply weren't told the consequences clearly. So the pension record can end up showing blank years, years that look like nothing was paid, when you know in your bones that you were working. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a tradesman, say painting and decorating. He works for decades. Some years are strong, some years are tough. During the tough years, his profits are lower. The contribution system can treat those years differently. He keeps working anyway. He pays bills, he keeps going. But later, when he reaches retirement, he checks his national insurance record and discovers that several years are missing or marked not full. Even a few missing years can reduce a pension because the state pension amount depends on total qualifying years. And those years don't disappear for one payment cycle. They can affect the pension calculation every week going forward. That's the emotional sting. You plan for retirement based on your effort. Then the record tells a different story. And the worst part is that the person often did everything they could, they just didn't have the information at the time when it would have been easier to fix. So what can you do if you find a self-employed gap? In many cases, there are options to pay contributions to fill missing years. Often the cost can be lower than you expect, especially if the years were missing due to thresholds, but you must check the record first, because paying blindly is a fast way to waste money or pay for something that won't help you. So Group 1 is self-employed pensioners with missing qualifying years. Now Group 2 catches people in a way that surprises them even more. Group 2 is people who had a spell out of paid work. That could mean unemployment, but it can also mean things most people don't immediately connect to national insurance credits, like long-term sickness, disability, or caring for someone who was ill or elderly. The system is supposed to protect qualifying years during these times by awarding national insurance credits. These credits are meant to keep your pension from collapsing just because life stopped your normal work schedule. So if you were genuinely unable to work, or you were looking for work and involved in the process, or you were caring for someone, you might have been entitled to credits. But in real life, credits don't always get applied automatically. Sometimes they're delayed. Sometimes they don't link properly. Sometimes people assume they are covered because they claimed something, but the national insurance record can still show those years as empty. So you can end up with gaps that come straight out of the life you already lived, caring, illness, unemployment, or disability. Think about it. A year you spent looking after an elderly parent, a period when you were signed off sick, a stretch when work was out of reach, a time when you cared for a sick relative so they could get help while you juggled your own responsibilities. Those years should have acted like protection. But if the record never got the credits, the pension can still be calculated as if nothing counted. And that's what makes this group so important. The gap can feel invisible because you're not doing anything wrong, you're doing what life asked you to do. Now let's talk about one specific situation that many families don't know exists. If you helped raise a grandchild so your child could go back to work, you may have been entitled to national insurance credits linked to that caring role. That kind of credit can be transferable from the working parent to the grandparent in the right circumstances, but hardly anyone knows to claim it. So in family after family, a caring grandparent reaches retirement and their pension is smaller than it should be, simply because those years never became qualifying years on the record. And the same theme applies to caring for someone who was sick or disabled or being too unwell to work. These are the years that often get missed because they weren't meant to be pension threatening. They were supposed to be protected. But if your national insurance record doesn't show them, you won't get the protection you were promised. Now, so far we've covered two groups: self-employed pensioners with missing qualifying years, and people who had time out of work but never received credits or never had them recorded correctly. Now you can see the common pattern. It's not one strange case. It's not a one-off administrative error. It's a system that depends on correct recording. And when the record is incomplete, your pension can be underpaid for a very long time. So the natural question becomes, how do I find out if this is happening to me? You don't need to be a pensions expert. You need to request two pieces of information from the government. First, your national insurance record. Second, your state pension forecast. On the national insurance record, you're not just looking for a number, you're looking at year-by-year details and whether each year is treated as qualifying. On the forecast, you're checking whether the pension amount you're expected to receive matches what you thought you built over your lifetime. And the process doesn't have to be online if you don't want it. A lot of people feel stressed about government websites. They imagine confusing forms and logins and waiting rooms and systems that don't work. So here's the reassuring truth. You can request your records by phone and ask for them to be sent out in paper form. That means you can sit at the kitchen table and go through your years calmly. Take your time, get a pen, highlight what doesn't look right, because the record is the evidence. It's where the hidden problem shows up, in plain language, year by year. Now, while we're on this, I want you to remember something important. Don't assume your record is correct just because nobody told you it was wrong. The system doesn't volunteer mistakes. It waits for you to check. And if you don't check, you can end up accepting a lower pension without ever knowing you had a right to more. So that's the foundation. And now we reach the third group. This third group is the one that creates the biggest weight. That can't be true reaction. It's also the group where the fix can be free. Group 3 is years raising a family, especially women, where protection for home responsibilities was never properly recorded. Let's make it simple. Between the late 1970s and 2010, if you claimed child benefit while raising children at home, you were supposed to have your state pension protected for those years. There used to be a protection mechanism often described as home responsibilities protection. Its purpose was clear. If you did unpaid work at home raising children, those years should still count toward your qualifying years, because the country depends on families. And the pension system was supposed to recognize that. But a fault in how the system recorded those protections meant that for many people, those protected years didn't get properly added to the national insurance record. So instead of being protected, those years can appear as missing or not fully qualifying. And this can be widespread enough that it's not just one person's mistake. In fact, the government has admitted that the problem exists and has run efforts to put it right. People are being contacted and asked to come forward. But still, lots of eligible people never realize they're affected. They assume everything is fine because they claim child benefit, just like they were supposed to. They assume the protection was already built into the system. And then they reach retirement and discover the record didn't reflect the protection that was meant to be there. Now comes the emotional part. Imagine someone who did exactly what they were asked to do. They left work to raise kids. They managed the household. They raised children through the 80s, 90s, maybe into the early 2000s. They claimed child benefit because that was the normal, expected step. And then decades later, their pension is lower than expected because a system recording problem prevented protection years from appearing. That's not just a paperwork issue. That feels like the country benefited from their family work, but didn't fully translate it into pension entitlement. And when the correction happens, it can be backdated, meaning it doesn't only increase your pension from today, it can pay back underpaid amounts from earlier years too. For some people, that has meant lump sums that can be hundreds or even thousands of pounds, because the pension correction travels back across the years that were wrongly treated. This is why I'm calling it the free fix, because correcting the home responsibilities protection issue shouldn't cost the pensioner anything directly. You're not buying back a year by paying contributions like you might have to for some self-employed gaps. You are asking the system to correct a mistake that was supposed to protect you in the first place. Now, I want you to hear who this affects, because it's an entire generation. It tends to impact women who spent their 20s or 30s bringing up 2 or 3 children and claimed child benefit throughout that period. It can also affect families where both parents' work patterns changed because of caring responsibilities. But the key pattern is the same. Child benefit was claimed. Home responsibilities protection was meant to protect years. And yet the national insurance record can still show missing or unprotected years. If you are a woman who fits that life timeline, or you have a mother, aunt, partner, or sister who does, this is one to treat as urgent, not because something bad happened, but because something good might be missing from the money you thought you already had secured. So now you know the 3 groups. Self-employed pensioners with gaps, people who had spells out of work or caring but never got credits added, and women and some families whose child benefit years were supposed to be protected but weren't recorded properly. Now let's get into the real how part, because here's the truth. The hardest part for most people isn't understanding the problem. It's the moment they have to do something about it. People delay because checking feels overwhelming, or calling feels intimidating, or they worry the online system won't work, or they assume it will take months. So let's reduce that fear and make it doable. When you request your national insurance record and forecast, you want to look for mismatches. Your life should match the record. So you're looking for years that show as blank, or years marked as not full qualifying, or years where the record suggests contributions were missing even though you know you were working, caring, or raising children. If the record is clear, you move on confidently. If the record has gaps, you write them down. Make a list of the years that look wrong. Then you decide what kind of gap it is, because the correction route can differ. That's important. Some gaps are about credits that weren't applied. Some are about employer-style contributions that weren't treated correctly. Some are about protections for home responsibilities, and some are simply missing qualifying record entries. So don't panic when you see something off. Start by sorting it. Self-employed years that look blank, caring or time out of work years that should have credits, family years when child benefit was claimed but protection doesn't appear. And once you have that list, you can take action with the right authority. If it's the family years tied to home responsibilities protection and the child raising protection issue, the correction can be free and backdated. You typically contact the relevant pension service and ask them to review and correct the national insurance record for the missing protection. If it's gaps from self-employment or time out of paid work where credits were supposed to exist, you usually need to contact HM Revenue and Customs regarding the eligibility and whether it's possible to add the right credits or make voluntary contributions to fill the gap. Here's a deeper point that many people miss. Filling a gap isn't always the best move for everyone. Some pensioners may already have enough qualifying years. Some may be in situations where paying extra doesn't increase their pension amount. There may also be special circumstances like contracting out history in earlier years that affect how totals work. So the right strategy is not pay first. The right strategy is check first, get the forecast, identify gaps, then decide. And if you want another layer of confidence, there are free services like Age UK or Citizens Advice that help older people understand what to do with their records. There are also specific pension guidance organizations that can help you see whether paying to fill a gap will actually improve your pension. You don't want to waste money trying to fix something that won't change the outcome. Now here's the moment where I want you to stop and make this real, because all of this talk means nothing if you never check. So let me challenge you gently but clearly. When this video ends, take 10 seconds and do one small action right away. Open your Notes app and write the words Request NI Record and Pension Forecast plus the date. Just one line. That way when you're calmer later, you don't have to remember what you meant to do. You can even set a reminder for a day this week. You're not committing to paying anything. You're committing to looking. That's how you protect yourself. Now, let's keep going because we're not done. The next section will answer the questions people ask when they finally decide to act. What if the record looks complicated? What if you're scared of phone calls? What if you don't know which years count? What if you don't even understand what happened? All of that is normal, and you can still do this. The key is to treat your record like a timeline, not like a mystery. Your national insurance record is designed to show your years and whether they count as qualifying. So if you see blank years or years marked not full, write them down. Then you match them against your real story, self-employed work during those years, periods of unemployment, caring responsibilities, sickness, child-raising years, while claiming child benefit. That mismatch is your clue, and it tells you where the system needs correction. Now let's zoom in again on the third group, because it's the one that can feel almost unbelievable until you understand why it happens. A lot of people think, if child benefit protected my pension, the system would automatically include it. But the system wasn't designed to be a magical, always correct machine. It was designed decades ago and updated over time, and protection mechanisms depended on correct recording and linking between different parts of the system. If that linking failed, the protection could fail to appear in the national insurance record even though child benefit was claimed properly. So the life event was real. The entitlement was supposed to be real, but the record doesn't always show it. Then when you check, you discover the truth that the system missed. And once you ask for the correction, the protection can be put back where it belongs. And because it's a correction of a missing protection rather than a new purchase, it can be free, and it can be backdated. This is why the third group can be the most powerful, because you're not just improving a future pension amount, you can be owed money from earlier years. That changes how you should think about the next step. Don't treat it as paperwork you might sort out. treated as something that could put missing money back into someone's life. Now, let's deal with the biggest worry people have. Will anyone believe me? Here's the good news. You're not asking for a favor. You're requesting that the system review your record, and you can point to the mismatched years. Your national insurance record is not a guess. It's an official timeline of what the system currently believes about your qualifying years. Once the record is shown, the correction process becomes about fixing data, not about arguing your value. The second worry is, how long will this take? Sometimes corrections take time. Sometimes it's not instant. But the earlier you start, the sooner the process can begin. Also, for backdated corrections, time matters because it affects how quickly money is returned. And for voluntary contributions in other cases, there can be strict time limits. So delaying can mean that a deadline passes and the opportunity to fill a gap becomes harder or impossible later. So I want you to feel this clearly. Waiting can cost you more than a few minutes of effort. Waiting can cost you money. Now let's make the what to do next section very direct. Here's a simple plan that works for most people. This week, request your national insurance record and your state pension forecast. Do it online if you're comfortable, or do it by phone if you're not. Ask for paper copies if that feels easier. Then go through the national insurance record year by year. Look at each year and identify anything that looks not full or blank. Don't ignore those years. Write them down. Then ask yourself, what was I doing that year? Self-employed, caring, unwell, unemployed, raising children? Match the record to your life. Now, if the gap appears in a way that connects to the family years and child benefit protection issue, focus on requesting the correction for home responsibilities protection missing entries. If the gaps connect to self-employment or time out of paid work, focus on whether credits were missed or whether it's possible to voluntarily fill years. But do it in the smartest order. Request the forecast first, then decide on corrections. That prevents paying unnecessarily. Now, one more important detail. There are free places that can help you do this properly. Age UK and Citizens Advice can help you understand forms and calls. They can also sit down with you and go through the steps. And if you want independent guidance on whether paying to fill gaps is actually worthwhile, use free pension guidance services. The goal is simple. Don't let cost stop you from checking. And don't let fear stop you from correcting. Because the money matters. Not in theory, in reality. A pension shortfall is not like missing a small bonus. It changes how much comes into your account every week, so even a single corrected qualifying year can matter. Many pensioners are shocked by the size of how small changes in qualifying years can change their pension amount. For some, adding missing years can raise the weekly state pension by hundreds of pounds per year, and that increase can continue for as long as you are drawing your state pension. So it's not just a one-time fix, it's ongoing. That's why the time you spend checking can become one of the most valuable things you do for your finances all year. Now we're going to pause again for a different kind of action. If you're watching this and thinking this might apply to someone else, please act on that thought. Send a message to a family member or friend and keep it simple. Say, I learned that some UK pensioners are being underpaid because national insurance records can miss years. Could you check your record? Don't write an essay. A quick message is enough, because this information travels like wildfire when people share it with the right person. And many pensioners don't sit and search YouTube for pension news. They rely on someone else to nudge them. So nudge them. Now let's move into the deeper analysis. What's really going on behind the scenes and why this keeps happening, even though the system is supposed to be for the public. The national insurance record is a lifelong list of years. That record is built from many different events. Work history, tax and contributions, benefits claimed, credits awarded, administrative processing of forms, links between agencies, changes of name, data matching across time. When any of those steps fail, the record becomes inaccurate. And when it becomes inaccurate, the pension calculation uses the wrong inputs. So the conflict here isn't that the pension system doesn't know how pensions work, it's that it relies on data transfer and processing. And data processing isn't perfect, but the real reason it remains hidden is simpler than people think. The system isn't designed to tell you every mismatch. It doesn't automatically send a personalized "you're underpaid" warning. It sends you a pension figure. And then unless you compare, you accept it. This is why checking is so powerful. Checking forces the system to reveal what it believes about your years. It turns a hidden issue into visible evidence. Now, another emotional layer matters too. Many pensioners feel embarrassed to ask. They feel like they should already know. They feel like they should just be grateful. But this is exactly the wrong mindset. If you worked and paid and claimed what you were entitled to, you deserve clarity. And if clarity shows a missing gap, you deserve correction. Not because you're chasing greed, but because you're correcting an unfair result. So let's talk about the situations where people think, maybe I should just ignore it. Here are the most common reasons. Some people think they don't have enough records to prove anything, but the official national insurance record is the starting point. It already contains what the system currently has on file. You don't need to prove every detail from scratch. You need to show that the record doesn't match your qualifying entitlement. Some people worry it will take too long, but even if it takes time, you're still starting the process now, rather than hoping for a correction later that might never happen. Some people worry that they'll be told they're not eligible. That can happen sometimes, but that's why you check the forecast and the record first. You avoid assumptions, you avoid guessing, and you avoid paying. Some people worry about cost, and this is where Group 3 becomes crucial. Because the family year correction can be free. You are not paying for a new year. You are fixing a missing protection. Now, for the other groups, there can be costs for voluntary contributions or depending on eligibility. But again, that's why you should always check whether it will actually improve your pension before paying. Now, here's one more point to keep you motivated. The act of checking isn't just about money you might get. It's also about stopping the silent loss. Every week you're underpaid, you lose money. The system has no incentive to hurry because it already gets the benefit of paying less. So the only person with motivation to move is you. And that's why this video exists. Not to scare you, to wake you up, to give you a map, to show you that something can be fixed. Now let's bring everything together into a clear action path. First, request your national insurance record and your state pension forecast. Second, review the record carefully. Look for blank or not full years. Third, identify which category those years belong to. Self-employed work, time out of paid work with credits, home responsibilities protection tied to child benefit years. Fourth, contact the correct department or service based on what you find. For the family year issue, ask about correcting home responsibilities protection. For other gaps, ask about credits and options for filling missing years. Fifth, if you're ever unsure whether paying will make a difference, use free guidance services before handing over money. Sixth, don't delay if you're eligible for corrections with time limits. The longer you wait, the more likely deadlines can pass, and the more difficult it can become to fix certain gaps. That's the practical reality. Now I want to say something directly to you, because many people watching this feel a strange mix of anger and grief. Anger at the system, grief that no one told you, fear that you might not be able to fix it. But let me offer a steady truth. Your pension record isn't set in stone in the way people think. It can be corrected, it can be updated, it can be fixed when the right steps are taken. The reason people get results is not luck. It's that they checked. They found the gap. They asked for the correction. They didn't assume. And you can do the same. Now I'm going to leave you with one final powerful thought. You spent years building a life. You worked, you paid, you cared, you raised children, you supported others. That effort wasn't small, and it shouldn't be erased by a missing entry buried inside a national insurance record. If you're part of those three groups, self-employed, out of work with missing credits, or families where child-raising protection wasn't recorded, then the most important thing you can do is simple: check. Not because you want a problem, but because you deserve the pension you already earned. So right after this video, make the choice to request your national insurance record. Give yourself that one honest look. If the system is accurate, you'll feel relief. If it's wrong, you'll feel power, because you'll finally have something concrete to fix. And once you have the evidence, you're no longer guessing. You're taking control. And that's where this story ends, in control. Not in confusion, not in quiet loss, in correction. And if someone you love is older and hasn't checked yet, share this with them today so their retirement doesn't stay trapped in a mistake they never caused. Because the future you want is already there. You just need to make sure the record matches it.